as we can. We have been spending a lot of time, at least y'all have, because I've not been in the class, y'all have been spending a lot of time talking through God and money, I believe, over the last few weeks. And so we want to have a message hopefully today that will provide a dual nature between us transitioning from where we find ourselves now to where we would want to go to. And then hopefully to take away some things that we could actually learn from. So our reading this morning taken from the book of Romans. Paul writing to the Roman brethren, we're going to just quickly read it over, read it in the NLT because it sounds better for those listening. Romans chapter 11 and verse 33 it reads, "So, oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge, and how impossible it is for us to understand His decisions and His ways." And so, we can tell if everything in our lives were written in hindsight, life would just be so great. But Paul, however, he has the benefit of hindsight because he has been able to experience through the writings as well as maybe genealogical history. He's been able to pick up a few things along the way that has transpired between God and His people, Israel. And so, like I always like to do, we'll go back into the Old Testament and we're going to see if we can pick up where Paul gets his language, his theology, his information from that helps shape the way that he's able to reason and think. And so for that, we go back to the book of Deuteronomy, and we're going to spend some time in there reading, hopefully to try to get something out of the text. Deuteronomy chapter, and the number is 8. Alright, so if at all you've ever read that particular verse out of Romans chapter 11, and in hindsight being able to be familiar with God and His people Israel and the course, the journey that they've taken, it's not a miracle, but it isn't impossible to appreciate that this would never be a match made in heaven. Because as Paul is alluding to, there are some ways, decisions, things being said that are just not seemingly possible to be able to achieve in the lives of the people. So they are coming from different worldviews, different spaces, and so God is God, and He's in a space where He finds Himself in the beginning having produced something that is good. Israel finds themselves in a position where they are transitioning from a space in Egypt and not doing so well, attempting to now be moving from a space of Egypt into the land of Canaan. God is going to say to the people that in chapter 7 of Deuteronomy, that is not so much based on your number, but it is really to do with the covenant that I've made with Abraham your father as to why I'm continuing to do this. Because the consistency of me doing what I'm doing through Abraham is also seeking to fulfill my own personal desires, which is that we all need to be realigned and put ourselves back in communion with each other. That thing that was broken in the beginning in the conversations between Adam and Eve and the serpent. So Deuteronomy chapter 8 opens up, and it's a call to remember. If you have any headings in your Bible, it's going to be a call to remember. And it's floating between do not forget and remember. And so what I will be seeking to do for us today is to help us to be able to make this transition that we're hoping to do. So there has been lots of talk from Dwight and Justin over the last few weeks. What we are going to be hopeful of is that the talk really transition into some action. And there could be some changes and there's some whatever has been taught in the class, we're going to materialize those changes in 2024. Yeah? Amen? Yeah, okay. So for us to be able to move from 23 to 24, that's why we're having this conversation, right? Yes?
Yeah.
Alright. So starting from verse 11, now the verses prior, in chapter 8 of Deuteronomy, he's once again highlighting that he brought them out of Egypt. You need to be able to be careful to remember that if you look, the sandals on your feet, they aren't worn out, the clothes aren't tattered. You're able to get some manna that your fathers didn't previously know. And so I've been taking care of you while we brought you out of Egypt, right? So verse 11 he says, so what, and this is the time to be careful. Beware that in your plenty you do not forget the Lord your God and disobey His commands, regulations and decrees that I am giving you today. So pause there. So he says, be careful so that you do not forget the Lord in your plenty. And so if I am to assume that if we start seeking to align ourselves with what God has sort of instructed in the scriptures, and there's going to be some benefit realized as in the life of Abraham as well as in the life of the Israelites, if there is supposed to be some plenty that comes along, the encouragement here is to not forget where the plenty comes from. And so God is the one that's providing the plenty. And so, as typical human beings, Moses, you need to be able to be one to know one, right? And so, Moses is instructing the people so that we are not going to forget who God is when the plenty comes. And so that means that plenty is in the future. Do I get that right? You get that, yes? Nice. So as we go ahead, 12, verse 12, for when you have become full and prosperous and have built homes and lived in, and when your herds have become very large and your silver and your gold have multiplied, along with everything else, be careful. Do not become proud at that time and forget the Lord your God, who rescued you from slavery in the land of Egypt. So now Israel is in a bit of a worry, wonder, because the people that Moses is talking to are the descendants of the original. Those that came out of Egypt, some of them, majority are now dead. As wandering in as the early parts of chapter 8 will tell you, it's been 40 years since they've been wandering. So this generation has died, and the new generation is here. So Moses is now talking to these as if they are the ones that were walking through the wilderness as their forefathers or their parents, grandparents, etc. And so as he's communicating with them, you get the sense that they are the ones that were actually walking when it's not necessarily them by themselves. Yeah? And so he says, do not forget, verse 15, do not forget that he led you through that great and terrifying wilderness with its poisonous snakes and scorpions, where it was so hot and dry, he gave water from the rock, and then he led you with manna in the wilderness, a food unknown to your ancestors, and he did this to humble you and to test you for your own good. God is awesome. Could you repeat that with me? God is awesome.
God is awesome.
Alright, because what Israel doesn't actually see, that in the early parts, let's go back to the early parts of chapter 8. I'm going to read it, right? From verse 3. He says, from 2, sorry. Remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness for 40 years, humbling you, testing you to prove your character and to find out whether or not you would obey his commands. Yes, he humbled you by letting you go hungry and then feeding you with manna, a food previously unknown to your ancestors, and he did it to teach you that the people do not live by bread alone, rather we live by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Now we say this people who have been in Egypt for some 400 years or so. That's no small feat, as many years. And so there's a part of them, or at least the whole of them, are fully Egyptian. So they're not Israelites. They are fully Egyptian in the way that they behave, in the way that they are cultured, in the way that they reason, in the gods that they currently serve. Because Moses is coming presenting another God to them who say, well, I now hear of your cry that is now coming up to me. And so if you remember when we did some lessons prior, Israel are the ones that say, now you brought us out here while we had the melons and cucumbers and everything was nice in Egypt, yes? So while everything is nice, you forgot that you are the ones that were in slavery. So we tend to have a little fickle mind and it's very short sometimes where God is concerned, because he's saying that you weren't really in a very good position. But what you did have was plenty. And what they had as plenty in the food that they were able to eat, they're now not experiencing out in the wilderness. And so obviously, your mind tends to go back to, well, this is what I had before. And what he is saying through Moses to the people is that there is some plenty to come in your future. But before we can get to the plenty, there needs to be some difficult periods. If we can maneuver the difficult periods and be able to negotiate them based on the way that I have outlined for you, then the plenty is going to come and he's going to be confirmed that you can manage the plenty. If we can't demonstrate that we can manage the little, then it's going to be very difficult to show that we can manage the plenty. So let me say to you, 2023 might not have been very good for some of you. 2022, 2021, 2020 might not have been very good. But if we expect 2024 to be any better, then we need to appreciate that 2023 has to have instructed us, and we should have demonstrated the way that God wants us to be for 2024 to be possible. If you have not done so, then 2024 is going to be a repeat of 2023. You see that? So where we find ourselves or found ourselves in slavery, and God brought us out of a place called Egypt, while we did have some nice things about what it is we found to eat, we were in slavery. So I would trade slavery for manna than I would manna for slavery. Yeah? So if it is you are in a space now where your life isn't so good, I want to suggest to you that we need to absorb the not so good because there's a period of good that is to come after. Rather than want to enjoy the benefit today and not have a good after. Simple enough, right? Alright, so as we continue the reading, where were we? Verse 16. So he fed you with manna in the wilderness, found unknown to his ancestors. He did it to humble you, test you for your own good. And then he did all this so that he would never say to yourselves that I have achieved this well by my own strength and energy. Another important point. The testing, the demonstration of my power versus your power, what you know to be God's in Egypt and what I was able to do. Because in the earlier chapters of chapter 4, Moses is going to say to the people, you have not known a God to be able to come and to walk alongside you as well as to give you as knowledge and wisdom that you are going to experience. No God has ever endeavored to be able to walk with the people and extract out of another people like I have done. So there's no other like me. Not even close that you could think of like me. And so the instructions that we see as judgments and statutes and what we consider to be 613 commands of restriction, he is saying this is necessary for you to be able to align yourself for what I am asking you to be. If you aren't able to catch that, then you are going to go into the land being the same person who you were, and when you are that person, I'm going to spit you out. You see that? So 2024, if it is you aren't prepared to receive it, it is going to spit you out. See that? Be careful. Be careful what we ask for. Be careful what it is you do with God. In your own personal spaces, what it is you are making bargains for. No, you go, Lord, I'm going to do this, Lord, I'm going to do that. Don't do that. If you know you're not ready to be able to change and to be a new person, please don't do that because the land is going to spit you out. You follow me? Next. So verse 18 of the text, he says, so remember, the Lord your God, he is the one who gives you power to be successful in order to fulfill the covenant he confirmed to your ancestors with an oath. So God is faithful. Say with me, God is faithful. Alright, so he's both awesome as well as he is faithful. Because what he is concerned about is his covenant faithfulness. I am going to do for you what I promised to do because of your forefather Abraham, because of he being on the same trajectory that we are in restoring the balance that was now broken in the Garden of Eden. So we're on the same page. So, you the people that are in Brasso, the Church of Christ, in the community of Brasso, and you say to yourself that we would like to do some good in the community of Brasso, that means that you are also aligning, identifying yourself with this God, Yahweh, because he is the one that is bringing about the difference. He brought about difference through the person of Jesus, and now he's saying that if you are going to be partnering with the same thing, if you see yourselves as being the solution to the problem, there's a particular way that we have to actually need to approach this. Yeah? Clear assumption, right? There's a particular way we need to approach it. So, but I assure you, verse 19, I assure you of this. If you ever forget the Lord your God and follow other gods, worshipping and bowing down to them, you will certainly be destroyed, just as the Lord has destroyed the other nations in your path, and you also will be destroyed if you refuse to obey the Lord. There are some instructions that God gives as to what he refers to as being covenant. So as fast as he brought them out of Egypt and he put them on the base of Mount Sinai and he's communicating to them, the reason that I have brought you through where you came from is because I am fulfilling the promises that I have made to Abraham. I'm also now joining and bringing you into this covenant relationship, and I'm going to say to you, you need to put me first. I'm going to be your God, you're going to be my people. I'm a very jealous God, and we're not going to have any others. Why is that important? Because they're worshiping other gods where they came from for the last 400 years. So it's important that you need to appreciate that the other gods are not the ones that are providing for you. Yes, there was melon. Yes, there might have been something that good as cucumber. Yes, you might have water. But the life that you're subjected to is not really the best that I have endeavored to give to you. So you say, why you think that is good? It's even better on the next place. You just need to be able to enjoy where you are, and we'll get you to where you need to be. So we're going to do that in the form of covenant. So we're going to have an agreement between ourselves. You're not going to have any other God. Then he also says that the relationship that we're going to have between each other you all are not going to covet. So why does he tell them not to covet? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Why does he tell them not to covet? But he's now saying to them that they are the people that are coming from slavery, and when they go into his land of plenty. So if you go into a land of plenty and you're going to have much, then I'm saying that what you are going to be as a human being is the rest of somebody else's thing. So I'm preparing for you. This is our agreement. When you get into the land, this is how I want you to behave with each other. So you need to behave a particular way with me, you need to be able to behave a particular way with each other. Sustaining that relationship means that you're going to have a long life in the land, your life is going to be very good, and the blessing that I had promised to your forefather Abraham continues to be yours. See that? We recipients, we call ourselves Gentiles, we are leveraging off of the work that has gone before us that we read in the pages. That's why I say if life was always hindsight, it would be very good. Because what we're able to do now is to appreciate the relationship God has with Israel. What we are then required to do, if it is we are going to continue to partner with God to be able to do this thing. Because He said that in me partnering with you, it's all about us restoring what has gone wrong in the beginning. So there's a problem. Israel becomes part of the solution. Israel isn't the solution because then it needs a Messiah to come. So if Israel is part of the solution, Messiah comes and He says there's a continuity that needs to happen because there are some things that the world needs to be able to see and appreciate that will then look within us and then say, well, look how wise and understanding these people are. They have such a God that walks in the midst of them, but sometimes we behave, but there is no God that walks in the midst of us. There's no power, there's no demonstration of it. Where is He? Is what the neighboring communities and nations are asking when they look within the church. Where is He? Because you are saying that He's a God of power, but I'm not seeing it. It's not demonstrated in your life. All I see is defeat and lackluster in your living. That is not what God is saying that He wants for His people. You all get that? So for 2024, there needs to be some difference in approach in the way that we live, and we need to somehow demonstrate to the people onlooking that they are going to be able to resonate and say the very same things. There is some wisdom, understanding, and knowledge about this people that makes me say there is something about that God that I want to know. Is it possible?
Yes.
Is it possible? It might seem impossible, but it is possible. That's why we're going back to where Paul began in the book of Romans. Because he says that there are some unsearchable and almost impossible things based on how we fathom them. But how God has pictured them and how He is delivering them, we will eventually get there if it is we are able to hold this with faith. For the community that is existing in time that Paul is reasoning, there's a difference between the Jew and the Gentile. The Jews are the ones who have the history. As Paul said, we have the adoption, we have the covenants, we have the promises, everything is on our side, but we really haven't done anything with it. And so the Gentiles are the ones that are coming along and saying, well, okay, we accept and we believe, so we're the ones that hold it by faith. So we are going to be better than the ones who walk before with God. And he's like, no, as well, no. You also have it wrong. Because you all are not better than them either. Because everybody belongs and puts into the same category. If we are not going to respect Him for who He is, accept what it is He has on offer, and then hold it by faith, then whatever we do is going to come up to nothing. It seems very straightforward, it seems very simple. The instruction is out of Deuteronomy chapter 8. God is saying, you are coming, let me go back, let me read it for you in my NASB. Verse chapter 8 of Deuteronomy. Go back with me. Just to make it clear. Verse 14 of chapter 8. He says, then your heart will become proud. You will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And He specifies where out of the house of slavery. Because the land of Egypt is connected with something that is good in their minds, because their clamor and their worry and their fight was about manna, the food, and water. We have none. And what God is simply pointing out to them is that while you have wandered 40 years, I'm the one who kept you away from the poisonous snakes, I'm the one who maintained the clothes on your back, I'm the one who maintained the sandals on your feet. Has any other God been able to do that? Has He been able to take you from nation through nation, allowing you to conquer and to be able to go into a land now where He is going to be plenty? Has any other God done that for you? No. And so the contrast and the distinction here is that in your minds, what you will remember is Egypt as being a good place because of what you see as the tangible things of food and water. And you are missing the fact that there is a blessing that God wants you to be experiencing in another land because you want to hold on to the tangibles of water and food. See that? So we need to be a people now that are just like we're reading on the pages here, accepting that where we are is Egypt. It might look and seem good in some instances where you find yourselves now. And there is going to be a need for you to want to go over into Canaan because you are comfortable where Egypt is. And God is saying to you, that's not where your landing or your final resting place is. You are the people that are going to fulfill my promises that I made to Abraham. So you need to be in and you carry in Egypt. So this is not about you, this is about me. And so you all need to get up and move. So similarly, you Brasso people, you can't remain where you are right now in 2023. We need to get up and get into 2024, but in a different approach. Appreciating that to be able to be sustained in 2024 and beyond, we kind of need to be able to adjust to what God is saying is the way for us to be able to live. Yeah? Simple enough to understand? I didn't take too long. Still hungry? Alright, so 2024, it promises to be a very good year. There's a song that I would like us to sing to representatively just now. What I want for us to be able to appreciate is that when we identify or have identified ourselves as being part of the solution, that means that each and every one of you has a role and a function and a part to play. All of us have a part to play. It's not just Quasi standing up and talking in front of you, not just like, oh, it's not my mother every time, keep going in the back there. Every one of us has a role and a responsibility. If we're able to figure it out and move together collectively, then we're going to be able to achieve what we want. If you believe that you are part of the solution, that is. If you do not believe that you're part of the solution, then what I'm saying to you does not make any sense. Because there needs to be a belief in you to suggest that you are going to make some changes and action to be able to fulfill what God is saying as the solution. You all understand what I'm saying? You have to believe that you are part of the solution to be able to move, to be able to get a space where you need to be versus where you find yourselves now. If you are comfortable in Egypt, then by all means remain in Egypt. God will allow you to remain in Egypt. But His blessing are for those who are going to Canaan. Yeah? Alright, so please.